Online arbitrage, I love it because you can go wider and you can have some really high ROI products, right? Like 30% and higher isn't uncommon in that space. And sometimes you may get the golden brick or the golden nugget where you can keep buying the same product over and over again. With wholesale, it tends to be more relationship focused. I think it's a good mix to do both of them. I enjoy both of them. Always be willing to change a little bit and learn a little bit more. That's the name of the game with Amazon.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Steve here, and I am joined with my new friend Paulo, who's been doing Amazon for about 2 years. Matter of fact, he started with private label, and not to throw him under the bus, getting right into the interview, but he said I can share. He lost $12,000 attempting private label, and he ended up moving into online arbitrage and wholesale. Now he's been doing that for about a year and a half. He does a mix of online arbitrage and wholesale. He's doing around $80,000 to $100,000 months. That's revenue. And he is mostly using prep centers. I think it's 100% prep centers, but we'll get into that. So yeah, we want to talk about Paulo's story. Again, he's been doing this for about a year and a half, having some really good success with online arbitrage and wholesale. So let's get right into things, man. Welcome to the Rake and Profit channel. What's going on, Paulo from Boston?
Pleasure to be here, Steve. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I love Amazon. I love what I do. It's been a struggle at times, but there's a lot more ups and downs. And, just stay consistent and enjoy the process. And I think you'll do well here. So hopefully I can help many of your viewers and for them to start Amazon and get it going.
Absolutely. Well, super happy to have you here to be able to pick your brain. And, Amazon is a struggle, right? There's times where Amazon is easy and it's like, wow, this is the dream come true. This is amazing. And then there's times, at least for me, where I'm like, why am I doing this? I want to quit, But let's get right into it, man. So, how did you learn about Amazon? I know you started with private label about 2 years ago. It didn't go so well. What's the story, man? How did you learn about Amazon and get into it? Would love to hear about your background.
So for private label, when I started that, I think I was just trying different things, trying to have some side hustles in some way.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't want to have a warehouse. My father is an entrepreneur. He has employees, leases, all that stuff. Like, I don't want to deal with that. So somehow private label showed up and I bought a course and I got involved with that. That was a huge learning curve. And in the end, it didn't work out. And what can you do? You know what I mean? I can't control everything. I can only control what I do. So, and I remember at the time, 9 months in already, and I just tell my wife, I'm like, I'm gonna figure this out, whatever I do. And I saw online arbitrage. I already had the account, I already had everything set up, the business, the LLC, right? I'm like, I might as well try. So I bought this course relatively cheap, and the rest is history. So that was a interesting way to start, but it definitely paid off in the end.
Yeah, I always recommend new Amazon sellers to never, ever, ever start with private label or wholesale, or even matter of fact, online arbitrage. I think, in my opinion, I feel like there's so many nuances to Amazon. It's best to start with the least amount of money, the least amount of risk. And I'm curious, would you say now that you're doing, online arbitrage and wholesale, thinking back, was private label the wrong move? Because I feel like private label takes a long time to even make your first dollar. With OA
Right.
wholesale, I mean, especially OA, you can pretty much buy an item, make money within, 2, 3 weeks once it gets checked in.
Yeah, sometimes I think to myself, where was your channel 2 years ago, Steve? Could have been watching some of your content, but you know, I think that was the only thing I knew about Amazon private label. I didn't get the exposure to online arbitrage or wholesale or anything like that. Retail arbitrage, I didn't even know that was the thing until I got into it deeper and deeper. But it was just I learned a ton of it. I learned about PPC, listing optimization, SEO, things that the online arbitrage community doesn't usually know.
Yeah.
So I actually, a lot of what I learned there, I am applying now. I actually have some listings under my own ASINs, so I'm the only person on there. So it's kind of like private label, but I'm using a lot of the previous knowledge to create value in the marketplace, and using a lot of PPC in my listing. So it wasn't a complete loss, but it definitely was a struggle, and just losing money.
Got you. So you're doing online arbitrage and wholesale now. What is your split between online arbitrage and wholesale? And maybe you can share a little bit about what do you like about online arbitrage versus, what do you like about wholesale, pros and cons. Would love to hear your feedback on that.
So the split between I like to put the split as what I spend on a monthly basis for arbitrage and wholesale. So it varies between 50-50 and then 90-10 for what I'm buying every month and 90 to wholesale, right? Because right now I'm at the relationships and the accounts I have require more money, which is fine because that's where I'm progressing. And they both have their pros and cons, right? The online arbitrage, I love it because you can go wider and you can have some really high ROI products, right? Like 30% and higher isn't uncommon in that space. And sometimes you may get the the golden brick or the golden nugget where you can keep buying the same product over and over again in that space and just go deeper in it. So I love OA because of that. With wholesale, it tends to be more relationship focused and it's a little slower to get the products. So sometimes I can get products as fast as 2 weeks at Amazon if my suppliers have it in stock. And sometimes it could take, 2 months and you need to put a deposit down. So every relationship is different. The stocks and special orders process is different, but I think it's a good mix to do both of them. I enjoy both of them.
So when you finally decided, all right, I'm going to do online arbitrage, you were like, I'm done with private label. You started doing online arbitrage. I have a couple questions. How long were you doing online arbitrage until you started seeing success? And then when were you like, I'm going to take the next step and I'm going to add wholesale to the mix? Because I feel like that's where a lot of people are, at least on my audience. They're doing like thrifting and garage sales, maybe retail arbitrage. They want to get into online arbitrage. But then for your story, like how long until you had success? And then when did you start adding wholesale?
So with arbitrage, it was almost immediate the success, right? So probably within like 2 months, I made the decision. I want to go deeper into this. So what can I do? So I opened up a 0% credit card and started to use that as kind of like a loan. And then I kind of stumbled upon. I love the mug, by the way. I kind
Oh,
of right.
thank you, man.
Yeah.
It's my only custom mug. It's not for sale. I just literally got one for myself. I don't know why, but I did.
So and then wholesale, it's funny enough because I just stumbled upon it. I was buying a couple products and I thought it was kind of like I was still profitable, but still kind of pricey. I'm like, let me just call a couple of places and brands and let's see if we can get a deal going. And actually, the first product I looked behind the label and just called them, and it worked out great. I lost that account eventually for some other reasons, but then the next few accounts, and I didn't even know this was wholesale at the time. I was just trying to open accounts. And then, so that was like November or so. And I love the fact that I could put bigger orders with them. So, but I really started to take wholesale more serious when I took the wholesale challenge with Corey. I started watching his content, other people in the wholesale space as well. But I think when you buy coaching, right, consultation, and those types of things, it's like the cheat code to get to A to Z for the process, right? You still have to do the process. You still have to learn the business. But I knew that was kind of like my next step, not just arbitrage, but wholesale because of the ease of spending, in my opinion. So that's how that process kind of unfolded for me in the past year.
So I'm curious of your thoughts regarding the wholesale challenge because I'm actually going to be going through it for the first time on January 22nd. So that's in about a little more than a week and a half or so. I'm going to be going through it. I do, just to give you a little background, I do 100% online arbitrage. So do you know Raul? Raul, he's in the wholesale challenge. I'm not sure if you've met him before. I just interviewed him. He did over 600,000 his first year with wholesale. And he said after the challenge, like he literally just hit the ground running. Was that the same situation with you, or after the challenge, like, did it take you 3, 4, 5, 6 months to kind of get the hang of it? Like, I'm curious, after you got through the challenge, what did that journey look like for you? Like landing your first wholesale account and, kind of getting the process moving.
I did the same thing Raul did. I felt like I felt empowered with the knowledge that I had and the processes and the language behind it. And that's what the challenge provides you, right? Kind of like the script with the process of with the workflow with wholesale. So the last challenge I think was July.
Yep.
And right after the challenge, they give you a 21-day challenge of like, hey, these 5 days do this, the next 5 days do that. I followed that to the T. I opened many accounts. Not all of them were profitable. And it also, I kind of got prepped ready for this trade show called ASD right after.
Mm.
And just for your listeners, know I also have a 9 to 5. I'm a new father. So I'm super busy. I feel like I'm losing some of the hair because of the craziness, sometimes. But the challenge really gives you the blueprint, right? So with my limited time, I really felt empowered to just hit the ground running. And I've been really successful with it so far. Immediately within 1 month, you'll see success with it.
Now I'm
I think.
curious. The thing that I'm a little bit nervous about, I guess I'm going to share my vulnerabilities here. I'm used to doing online arbitrage, thrifting. Like I don't have to talk to brands. I don't have to talk to distributors. I'm curious, what was that like for you after going through the wholesale challenge and having to email brands and distributors, picking up the phone, talking to them? And it's like, obviously we know what we're doing. I mean, I've been selling online for 10 years, but I feel like it's a different story when you're actually talking to a brand and distributor. Is that a limiting belief, or was that something that, you were easily able to do for the first time after the challenge?
I feel like I'm more of an introvert in general. So for me to start a conversation, I'd rather be the listener, and that's actually an important skill. You want to be listening to when people talk to you over the phone, opening an account, right? Ask good questions. So it was definitely uncomfortable for me. Even if I have the blueprint, I think it's going to be uncomfortable for anybody just because it's new, not because it's extremely hard or anything else. But anything that's new to you, it's uncomfortable. You don't know that sometimes the process you're gonna mess up, and that's fine, right? Because you learn from those mistakes. But after like 10, 20 emails that you start sending out, after you start calling people, after like the 30th call, give or take,
Mm.
it feels way more natural. It feels comfortable. And and even if it's not that number, right? Let's say you're still more uncomfortable at 50 or 80 calls, right? With time, you will get comfortable. You will feel comfortable with the process, talking to people. You know what to look for. It ends up being normal, or just like anything else after a while. So feeling uncomfortable is normal in the beginning.
Yeah, right. It's like dating or like approaching a girl or a guy or whatever, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's nerve-wracking in the beginning, but then you do it after a while. You're like, all right, I got rejected 5 times. I'm still here.
Yeah. You're going to face rejection, and you're going to learn a little bit, and then you can use that news. You're going to learn something from that and apply it to the next call or the next email. And the challenge is you're actually really good with the scripts and how to reach out to people. So it really cuts down on those rejections.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard a lot of success stories, not only you, but Raul and a bunch of different people. That's why I'm going through the challenge. But yeah, I've heard through the grapevine that there's a bunch of scripts and templates and different things. So I'm excited about that. Now I'm curious, Paulo, when you jump on a phone call, are you more or less getting to business? And like, let me put it this way: are you having to sell yourself? Are you having to share testimonials, or are you having to almost sell them on the fact that, hey, I'm going to fix your listings and help you with pictures and PPC? Because I know a lot of people come from the place of like adding value to get the deal, and then there's others who you're just calling everyone and just trying to get someone to say yes. What approach do you take when it comes to landing a distributor deal or a wholesale deal?
Yeah, I approach brands, typically I approach a brand that has a good listing already. So I'm not, even though you do want, ideally, if you had the skills or somebody else that could help you out with the listing or PPC or whatever, you can go with that approach. But that's typically a slower approach to getting things going, and you actually need to come through with what you say, right? So you need to be a man of your word, a woman of your word. So my approach typically is short and sweet. Like when I reached out to distributors, I typically focus in one category, which is automobiles and tools and accessories, those types of things.
Hey,
So I
Corey,
know,
too. You guys are both in that category.
I know, I it's funny he mentioned that because I just love cars. I've been working on cars, repairing them for like 20 years, but
Nice.
and that's not my day job. I do it for fun. So positioning yourself as knowing the brands, knowing the products you want, having an idea of the pricing, I think is very helpful in the beginning. It could be any category. As long as you know a little bit more about it than the average person, I think you're already way ahead. So you position yourself as somebody that's knowledgeable about it, that you work in the e-commerce space, not necessarily just Amazon from the get-go, because some of them don't
Mhm.
want to work with Amazon
Yeah.
sellers and for many other reasons. But I think the positioning of and knowing what you want when you first reach out. Keep it short and sweet through email and through phone call will go a long way, rather than trying to chit chat and, hey, can you send me a catalog, which can work. But when you're talking to sales reps, they get paid typically on a commission basis. So they don't want to be wasting their time just talking to you over the phone. They want to know if this is real, you're willing to spend a little bit of money by opening an account and know what you want, right? So that's my approach.
So would you think that it would be a good idea for, instead of people to just send like a blanket script, sometimes come in with a plan like, hey, I'm interested in this product. I'd love to pick up 200, like really like letting them know, hey, I'm here. I want to spend. I know what I'm looking for. Do you ever go with that approach?
I have gone with that approach. Typically, to ask for a discount in a way, I tell them, "Hey, I'm looking to buy this product here. I can buy in volume, and what would it take for me to buy in quantity to hit around these numbers?" So it basically, I ask for a discount, but in a way, I leave it up to them to say,
Yeah.
"Hey, you're gonna need to buy 200 units or maybe 50, depending on the price. It just depends." But you kind of give it back to them, and you can go back and forth, right? So that's my number one approach.
Nice, man. Paulo, I'm getting him to share all of his secrets, man. So let's go back to probably what, about a year ago. When did you land your first wholesale deal? Was it about a year ago or less?
It was, yeah, about a year ago, around November or so.
Got you. So take us back to, I know you were calling a bunch of distributors. Take us to maybe your first good deal. And of course, I'm not going to ask you for anything, specific, right? You could share the ASINs with me behind the scenes. No. What was that first deal like? What did it feel like? How did it go? Going through that whole process the first time of, communicating, maybe getting the catalog, putting the deal together, putting through your first, what I'm kind of nervous about is like putting through my first purchase order, but it's so silly because it's probably easy once you do it. What was that like?
So the first account that I landed it was an online arbitrage website that I made an order, and then immediately, like the day after, I emailed them like, "Hey, I just put in this order, but I actually want to buy in bulk," because that was the second website I bought it from. They had the better price, and then I just told them I'm looking to buy 50 units, and I'm like, "Would you be willing to give me a discount?" And immediately they gave me like a 20% discount from the
Hey.
retail price that they were selling at. So I'm like, this is great. You know what I mean? It was like 20 something percent margin, because Amazon was selling it for way more. So I was super happy. And I was kind of nervous writing that email, right? And then they called me and we spoke over the phone. But it was exciting, nervousness, all that kind of feeling. But it was really easy. That's kind of like, it blew my mind that it wasn't that hard to get such a good discount in the beginning. So
Yeah, it's so weird. Like I think about my situation and it's like, why am I so nervous to get into wholesale? It's like, why would I be nervous about people? They want your money, right? They want your
yeah,
money at the end of the day. So why do we get in our head so much about how do we sound? Like, are we professional? Like, if you have the money, like, don't they want the money essentially? It's crazy to think.
that's pretty much it. They want the money and they want serious buyers. That's what they look for. And that's kind of what a lot of Amazon sellers in the space typically, they're serious buyers, but they're not consistent, or they ask for a lot of discounts. And it's I guess it's harder to work with a person like that if you're a sales rep. He's not consistent, and why give you the greater deal if I have a bunch of customers that are already better customers?
Yeah, I think from what I've heard from Raul and Corey and speaking with you, it's a relationship game. You have to have that emotional intelligence and also, be respectful and understand that they're a salesperson. If you're dealing with a salesperson, there's only so much they can do. They're trying to pay their bills. They're doing their job. So I think a lot of it comes down to probably respect and emotional intelligence and having a real conversation and following up and, being a man or woman of your word, right? You say you're going to do something, you say you're going to email them, you say you're going to put in a purchase order. I'm sure all of that builds equity towards the relationship long term.
Absolutely. I'll give you an example today. A distributor I've been working with for 3 months, not steady orders because not always profitable, right? But I bought one product from them like 6 weeks ago that was really profitable. And then I reached out again. It's like, hey, your prices went up, but if you're willing to work with around this price again, I'm willing to buy again. And they're like, hey, our pricing, I can only do this right now, but if you give me a hard number of how many you want, maybe it can work. So I went back and I gave him basically a 5x order from my original one. And I'm waiting for his feedback, but I feel like he's going to come a lot closer than where we are right now. So I've been buying from him more consistently, and I'm willing to spend, 5x more. So I'm hoping he can come very close.
What are the average? I would say we got it's crazy. I got a list of questions to ask you, but every time I do these interviews, I'm so bad because I end up like I've got like my brain just wants to go in a million directions. So excuse me, but I'm curious, what's like your average order? Like are you typically spending like 2,000 an order, 5K, 10K? For folks wondering, what would you say is a good amount of money that a lot of distributors want for like a minimum order?
It's all over the place, Steve. So there's some distributors that their minimum with them is 50K or more. It just depends on, they're working with Walmart, some of these distributors. So they expect big orders because that's how they do business. But most distributors with $500 to $1,500, you can put in an order for products, specifically the grocery category, right? You can get a good amount of volume for not a ton of money. But my average POs, I would say, is between 5 and 25, the vast majority of it. And it doesn't happen every day, right? But
not
I'm
yet.
not there yet. Not yet. But I would say that's a very common for me. But you don't need a ton of money in this space. That's another limited belief that other people think, oh, wholesale, you're going to spend a lot of money. Not really. You know what I mean? You can start off smaller.
So speaking of limiting beliefs, like thinking back over this last year, I want you to go back to when you first started. I'm sure you had a lot of limiting beliefs, right? There were probably fears and things that you were scared of. Like thinking back, what are some other limiting beliefs that you've just discovered just isn't true? Like, for example, you don't need $1 million to do this. Is there anything else that like stands out to you in terms of things just aren't true that a lot of beginners probably it scares them from getting started with wholesale?
It's not as hard as you think. Reaching out to brands and going through that process, keeping track of the orders. The first time is always a little, a hiccup here and there, but it's like, I go back to working on cars because I've done it for so long. But the first time I do want like an oil change or do a brakes or something like that, it's like, don't have the right tools, you don't have this. But the next time you do it, you fly through it like in half the time. And it's just setting up shipping with pallets and things like that and bill of ladings. It's all new. It's really not incredibly hard. You know what I mean? I have a 4-year degree in engineering, and that was hard. But after a while, everything becomes easy. It just, you have to do that work, put in the time and the discipline, and it becomes so easy. Like it's like making coffee in the morning sometimes.
Love it.
Crazy.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yep. I'm enjoying some coffee right now. So let me ask you for the folks, who are just getting started with this, or, maybe folks who are excited to get started with the wholesale challenge and all that. What are some of maybe the best beginner strategies to be able to find some wholesalers or distributors or brands to reach out to an email or contact? Like, are there any easy ways to do this? Are you just Googling it? Is there a software, anything you could recommend?
I recommend 2 ways that's worked really well for me. One is Googling, a category, go into Google to put in your city, put in the category you kind of want to work with, and then put in the word distributor or wholesale. And you're going to get a ton of different leads that way, right? Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. Actually, I'm going to give you 3 different ways. And if you go through that process and are able to open an account with one company, then you can use the website called SpyFu. It's spyfu.com. You put in just the website of this distributor if they have one, right? That's the requirement. And what it does is it uses SEO, search engine optimization. It looks up the keywords and will find similar websites set up the same way so that you can actually reach out to them too. And I found many profitable accounts using this way. And then the third way, which I think it's not really advanced, but it's just you reach out to a specific brand that you like. Let's say, maybe not Apple or something like that, but just a company, maybe even like Logitech or something. And they're probably not going to work with you, right? Because they probably want a higher minimum order or something like that. And then they say no. And then you go back and like, hey, so you may not sell direct to me, but are there authorized distributors that you can share your list with me? And 99% of the time, they will share you like 5 to 10 other distributors. So now the distributors, you can open accounts with them. But not only do you have access to that one brand, and now you have access to hundreds of brands. So That's another fantastic way to get authorized leads.
That's great, man. That's really, really helpful right there. SpyFu. I will put the link on the screen for folks, and I'll definitely be looking into that. What's your typical like ROI or minimum profit per item? So like when you know, maybe you have a minimum order quantity of maybe 100 of a specific ASIN you want to pick up. You figure out what you're going to sell it for, and what's your typical lowest profit per item you're looking for, and your typical ROI with wholesale.
So the target is always 20% for me. I think 20% is a good number. It's a fantastic number in that space. 20% margin. So ROI is probably between 30 and 40%, depending on the selling price. But
so when you say margin, everyone always like throws these words out. What does margin mean to you?
so margin for me is the profit of the product after removing the cost of the product and the Amazon fees. Pretty much. It doesn't remove the expenses of the business, like software and things like that. So it's really 20% profit of that product.
Got you.
After paying the fees with Amazon and stuff. So that's what it means to me.
That's good. 20% is really good. I feel like a lot of my OA products have that.
Yeah, exactly. But you won't find 20% often. But that's the goal. What I mean by that is you will typically find products between 5 and 12% margin, right? Profit. But it's always a negotiation, right? So starting off, you're going to find products at a lower profit. But as you build that relationship, as you start buying more often, more frequently, and maybe even larger orders, that's where you can negotiate, because one, you're building the relationship, and two, they know you're a serious buyer. They know you have enough money to be buying in volume or often. And then at that point, they're willing to walk to their manager like, hey, I have this buyer. They're looking at this price. They're going to buy more. What can we do for them? And now that product that started off at like 5 to 12% profit is closer to 12 and 18%. You know what I mean? So the relationship is very important, and it's a long-term game. It's not an overnight success. OA may be, but wholesale I think is long-term, but I think it's more scalable. So
well, man, I'm really impressed about the ROI and profit. Like I said, a lot of my online arbitrage items that I sell have a 20, 30% profit at the end of the day. So that's really impressive. So what's the goal, man, for 2024? Where do you want to take your wholesale business? Do you have any big goals? Because you're 100% prep right now, right? So you don't even have a warehouse or anything.
I do have a little prep area right behind me for some smaller orders or some test buys once in a while. I'll send to me just to make sure, if I have a hunch, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure about this distributor, which sometimes you get a lot of that. They're old school, a lot of them. They're like old guys just hanging out. Oh, okay, you want this order or not? You know what I mean? Like, they're just old school, and I'm not used to that. But the goal for 2024, I don't have a revenue goal anymore. I have a profit goal. My profit goal is 400,000.
Wow.
Yeah, it's up there. So it's gonna take some calculated risks, but I think it's very doable. I'll get very close, So that's plus the 9 to 5 as well. Eventually, I'll leave that, but 400K is the goal.
And what do you think, if you had to determine, what are the one or two things that you think is going to allow, like, what are you going to have to double your sales, triple your sales? Like how much are you like expanding big time? Because I know you're doing about 80 to 100K right now. So that's got to be what, 3x your revenue, I would assume.
It would be a little over 2. I have some high profit products that are coming in, and or high margin, right? 20% or sometimes a little bit higher for a few of them. So it doesn't sound, it looks kind of crazy, but I don't think it's crazy at all, because I know it's out there. Last year I had a brand direct deal. It didn't work out in the end for many reasons, but the profit margin on the product was 50%. It's insane.
Wow.
A little higher return rate, so it really averaged around 35, but that's still fantastic. So these products are out there, these companies are out there, and it just takes more digging and more repetitions, more calls, more emails, right?
So are you going to quit your job, or are you going to continue doing your job and then try to do 400K profit on the side?
No, I'm keeping the job until I want to leave this year, but it just helps it helps the growth, right? It's just money I can put towards the business if it's extra.
Got you, man. Well, super cool. I know we had a lot of questions to ask, but a lot of times I end up just going down some rabbit holes. So I really just wanted to hear about your story, and man, it's got me inspired, man. I am pumped up to learn. I'm pumped up to go through the wholesale challenge starting January 22nd. And I'll put some information down below for everybody if you want to join alongside with me and start adding wholesale to the mix. Honestly, my goal, Paulo, is to add maybe just 20 to 30% wholesale to the mix and just slowly expand from there. What are your thoughts on that for folks coming from OA to wholesale? Do you recommend adding a small amount and then slowly kind of building it in, or did you go all in? I forgot to ask you.
I kind of went all in at first, and then I recognized like, hey, I really shouldn't have dropped away like that. But that's why I throttled back. And like I said, sometimes you don't have as many leads, or you can't put in as many orders, depending on how much capital we have. I think 20 to 30% market share, if you want to call it that, of your business being wholesale is fantastic. It could be any number you want. If something's working for you, just keep doing it. You know what I mean? But always be willing to change a little bit and learn a little bit more. That's the name of the game with Amazon.
I love it, man. Well, hey, thank you so much, Paulo, for coming on. Super grateful. I'm going to put Paulo's social media links on the screen. So I'll put it in the beginning of the video as well. And we'll also put it on the screen and down below. I believe you have Instagram and Twitter you were saying?
That's correct. Yeah.
Well, cool. Definitely give Paulo a follow, paulo.sells. If you want to check him out, learn from him, see what he's got going on. And just want to say thank you so much for coming on, talking about your story, selling on Amazon, and sharing some of the losses in the beginning, but now the wins and the big goals for 2024, man. I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to hit it, man. I love it. And I love that you consider yourself an introvert and you're able to make this happen. So for everyone out there saying, I can't do this, maybe you're an introvert, maybe you're nervous to get on the phone call. If Paulo could do it, right?
Anybody can do it. You're right. So right, Steve.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, Paulo. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Take care.
Bye-bye, guys.